Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rhiannon and today I'm bringing you guys a spoiler-filled vlog for Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have recently launched my very own book club on an app called Fable. It's called A World of Words, and every month I put up a poll on there where we choose our next read. Now, we have already read Fear the Flames and Jurassic Park, and this month I did go a bit rogue. I put up a new release on there because I'm not gonna lie, I was desperate to get to this book, and it seems as though you guys were too, because this one did win the poll, which means that the July pick for the A World of Words book club is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I will, of course, leave the link to my book club down below. It is on an app called Fable, as I mentioned, which is completely free to download and join. I've honestly been blown away by the amount of you who have joined and also the support that I've received so far with this book club as well. It truly does mean the world, and it's actually made me have to prioritize the books that I'm reading in order to make sure that I do read the book of the month and post a spoiler-filled vlog for it. As I've already mentioned though, from this point onwards, this vlog is going to be spoiler-filled, which means that I will be talking about the things that are happening in this book. I will be going into in-depth thoughts I have whilst reading this, and I will be referring to the things that have gone on. So if you haven't read this book yet, I advise you to do that first and then come back to hear my thoughts once you have. But honestly guys, I'm so excited to get to this book. This is also a different cover as well. This is the Fairy Loot exclusive edition, which is stunning. And all I know about this one so far is that we follow 3 women across 3 different timelines, and it somehow involves vampires. I feel like I don't really need so much more than that, but for your sakes and mine, I will read the synopsis just so we know what we're getting ourselves into. It says, "This is a story about hunger. 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily, and Maria knows she can only ever be a pawn in men's games. So when an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria makes a desperate choice. A story about love. 1827, London. A young woman lives a cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Once there, a beautiful widow offers Charlotte her freedom, but at what cost? A story about rage. 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be a fresh start. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world. Then an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning everything. Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. This is a story about life, how it ends, and how it starts again." That doesn't really give too much away, but I've read a load of books by Victoria Schwab before. I absolutely love her writing style. She is a fantastic writer, but especially in this type of genre. I just know that this is going to be such an atmospheric book, and it's going to have those gothic vibes as well, hopefully at least. So yeah, very excited to dive into this one. I'm not going to be doing so just yet. I'm going to give it a few days because I do have some books that I need to finish before diving into this one, but I'm very much looking forward to diving into this one and reading it, and of course sharing my thoughts on it with you guys as well. Just popping in guys to let you know that I am planning on starting Bury Our Bones at the Midnight Soil tonight. Gavin from Gavin Reads It All is hosting some reading sprints, and I thought, you know what, it's about time that I pick this one up and give it a read. So that is what I'm going to do. I feel like tonight is going to be a very chilled night, so hopefully I can get quite a few pages read. But yeah, it's a night off from the gym. I don't have any real plans, and of course Gavin is hosting sprints, so that should motivate me to get some reading done. I am just going to take myself into the living room now though. I think I'm going to pop these sprints on the TV, which I don't love doing because I find it hard to chat that way, but I think I'll just join the chat on my phone and obviously watch the sprints on the TV, and that way I can really chill out and focus on the book, as I said, without having to really do anything else for the evening. But yeah, I did just want to pop in before starting this one and let you know that that is what I'm going to do now, and I will of course chat to you guys once I have a few updates and let you know what I think of the start of this book.
Hello, my love. Listen, I told you you'd be busy. You've been fairly busy. Oh my gosh, how is everything?
Hello, Ramona. I can't shake the simplest feeling beyond the ghost. We stand on the opposite shore. Hello, Ramona. I reach through mysterious ceilings, my only hope. I look for the things I don't know.
Long time no see, guys. I have just made it back from a 2-week trip away to Walt Disney World in Florida, and because of that, this video of course had to be put on pause. Now, I did actually start this book on the day that I first updated you. I put on Gavin's sprints and yeah, managed to read, I think it was about 80 pages, but then I got very overwhelmed with the pre-travel stuff that I needed to get done, and I just thought, you know what, if I read any more and I spend 2 weeks away, then I'm gonna have forgotten a lot of things that went on in the book, and I didn't want that to happen. So I thought that I would put it on pause until I came back. So that is exactly what I did. Now, I have chatted to everyone on the book club page just to let them know, because of course that means that this vlog is now going up a lot later, which I do apologize for, but honestly, I was just so overwhelmed by everything and I wanted to go away and not really have to worry about reading. I've also been in a really weird reading slump recently, and so it just hasn't been the time to sit down and read a new anticipated release that I think is going to be a new favourite. Now, I can say that I'm very glad that I did decide to do that, because I've now actually made it up to page 190 and I am really enjoying this one so far. Now, this doesn't actually have the dust jacket on currently. I do take off my dust jackets when I read hardcover books, so that is why it may look a bit different. But yeah, as I said, I'm really enjoying this. I feel like I would love it even more if I read it during the winter months, just because of the themes in this and the plot itself and the fact that it involves vampires. I was gonna do this spoiler free, but oh my goodness, I can dive into all my thoughts on this so far. I keep forgetting that in these vlogs you guys will have read the books too, and so I'm free to share my thoughts. Now, currently we are focusing mainly on 2 characters. We have Sabine / Maria, and we also have Alice. We do have another character who's been mentioned called Lottie, however we've seen her in 1 or 2 chapters and then we haven't seen anything since. I do think she's going to come back into play though, because spoiler alert, she is the one that has turned one of our main characters, Alice, into a vampire. Now, I am going to backtrack. As I said, we're mainly following our 2 main characters, Sabine and Alice. Sabine is known as Maria at the beginning of this book. I think I'm going to talk about her first, mainly because the majority of this book so far has focused on her. I actually think that's a big reason why I've enjoyed this book, is because of the historical fiction element. For those of you who don't know, I do enjoy my historical fiction books. I don't really tend to pick them up as often as I should, but when I do tend to really enjoy them. I also find Sabine to be a really interesting character as well. At least in the beginning of the book, she does have a lot of depth, and whilst that continues, I do feel like we see a different side to her, and that is mainly because of the way she's been treated, what she's had to deal with, and also the change in herself as well as she is made. So at the beginning of the book, we meet Sabine, who is Maria. She is a commoner from a big family, and one day, I think it's while she's at the market, she notices a widow. Everyone else seems to be wary of the widow and kind of stay away from her. However, Sabine is a very confident child. She has a lot of courage and self-belief, and so yeah, she basically goes up to her. I can't remember exactly what the widow says to her, but I think she just tells her to run off home, which she does. Now, this instance is soon forgotten about, and Sabine is focused on her future, because being a woman in these times, you were made to marry at a very young age and produce children as quickly as possible, and that is essentially what her family's plans are. And so in order to take some control over the situation, she's actually been out kind of scanning the caravans that pass through, looking for a potential husband. And what would you know? One day, that is exactly what she finds. She takes a liking to a Viscount, and she somehow manages to trick him into falling for her. And so when he shows up at her family's house and asks for her hand in marriage, the family, and of course Maria, accept. This is all Maria ever wanted. She is now moving to a grand estate where she's going to have a lot of freedom, or so she thinks, until she actually gets there and realizes that she is nothing more than a prisoner. All her husband wants to do is show her off, and by doing this, he does cage her in a way. She's not allowed to socialize with anyone, she's not allowed to leave the grounds, and that includes riding her horse as well. And so she does get very bored very quickly. She's also very lonely, but we do see her start to form a bond with Isabel, who is a maid at this household. That, I will say, was something that I really enjoyed. I loved seeing their relationship develop, and we do get some glimpses into Sabine's character as well, and we get get our first glimpse into her feelings towards women. Sabine absolutely loathes her husband. He is just a pain to her, essentially. He is arrogant, he is cruel, and all he wants from Sabine is for her to produce male heirs. And so when he has been coming to see her at night, he hasn't been giving her any sort of pleasure. He just wants to pleasure himself. Sabine even questions him at one point and she's like, what about my pleasure? And he's like, you're not made for pleasure. God gave me the tools to impregnate you and it's my pleasure that's important, which absolutely hate that. But then yeah, as I said, when she's with Isabel, we see a tender side to her. We see that when Isabel touches her, she reacts in a certain way. And that is when you start to realize that Andre, who is the Viscount, has completely just turned her away from men. For this point, at least, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And she doesn't want to have any sort of pressure in terms of her body and also providing heirs for anyone. So yeah, as I said, Isabel brings out the kind of softer, tender side to her. But unfortunately, once again, Andres decides to ruin it for her because he does send Isabel away. Now, it's not explicitly mentioned, but Sabine does hint at the fact that Isabel is actually the Count's illegitimate daughter. Now, the Count is obviously the Viscount's father, and with Isabel still being in the same household, it is a little bit awkward. And so Sabine is sent off to live with the Viscount's mother and father in the middle of the city, which she absolutely hates. And not only that, they also take Isabel away from her, which is so, so sad. Sabine grows more and more resentful every single day as she, again, is still a prisoner even though she's moved to the city. However, every week she's allowed to go with the Countess into the market and get everything that they need. However, one day Sabine stops in her tracks because who does she see but the widow? The same person from 10 years ago who hasn't changed at all, and Sabine is very mystified by this. She is obviously confused, but more than anything she is intrigued. And so she does find that the widow has a shop there, she has an apothecary, and she convinces the Countess to let her go there by saying that she wants some herbs to make her fall pregnant. Of course, this couldn't be further from the truth. She wants a tonic to get rid of any children that she could possibly have or to stop her from conceiving in the first place. And then while she's there, she does form a friendship with this widow. And again, we start to see Sabine's personality come out. She has been stuck in a box for so long that she's kind of lost this part of herself. However, we do see it come out when she is with the widow. Now, plot twist, the widow's name is Sabine. And remember, this Sabine is actually called Maria at this point. But I feel like it's just going to be confusing if I call them different names all the time. So I'm going to stick with the widow. But after a while, she kind of convinces Maria to take control of her own fate. And she hints at the fact that Maria could kill her husband. However, she's like, no, thank you. I will just have to deal with it. But one night, Andre comes into her room, and that is when she snaps. She's like, I can't take this anymore. I don't like it. I'm repulsed by him. I want to be free. And so she climbs out of bed, goes to see the widow in the middle of the night, who then turns her into a vampire, which is crazy enough in itself. But what is actually really sad is that Maria doesn't know any different, and she actually drains the life out of the widow. She is bitten by the widow and then she's given the widow's blood, but she takes it too far. She takes too much. She can't control herself, and yeah, she drains the life out of the widow, or whatever is left in the widow, because obviously she's the undead. This is when Sabine is turned into a vampire and she claims the name Sabine for herself. She's hated the name Maria all of her life. She wants to get away from it, and so, as I said, there is one name that has stood out to her, which is Sabine, and I suppose that's a kind of beacon in the darkness for her. The widow was someone who brought her back and who was able to give her that freedom that she wanted, even though of course it didn't quite go to plan. So I feel like that is why she's gone for the name Sabine. And so Sabine doesn't wait a second. She marches right up to the Count and Countess's house and she basically kills every single one of them. I will say she doesn't actually kill the Countess. The Countess tries to run away from her and she falls down the stairs and breaks her neck, which isn't a great ending, but I don't know which way I'd rather go. I think it would be just falling down the stairs and, you know, going that way, because being attacked by a vampire sounds absolutely horrific. We then follow Sabine as she kind of tries to find her feet in this new body and in this new way of life. She obviously killed her maker, and so she doesn't know what is going on. She doesn't know the rules, I suppose, to what she can and can't do. For example, we see that she has to be invited into places, otherwise she can't physically go in. It's like something is holding her back. She can also kind of hear people's thoughts as well and get a sense of how they're feeling just from their aura and the way their heart is beating, which is so interesting. And of course, if she does taste their blood, then she gets to find out all the more because that is very personal. But after a few years of being by herself, she actually stumbles upon two other vampires, a male and a female, who are in the middle of killing a bunch of men. They are called Hector and Renata, and they are both vampires. Hector is Renata's maker, and they do actually take Sabine in. They teach her a lot about vampiric lore, and again, the rules that do kind of go with that. And so this is again where we see Sabine start to blossom in herself, because she is finding what she can and can't do. She's also been made aware as well of the fact that anything to do with her heart could mean her death. So in one scene, she actually falls over and a stake of wood goes through her, but it just misses her heart, and the other two are mortified. They're so scared, and Sabine's like, what, it's fine, it'll just heal. And they're like, no, we keep forgetting how young you are. Like, if that would have pierced your heart, you would be dead. And so she is being made aware of the fact that she isn't entirely immortal. There are still ways to kill her, and she of course doesn't want that. She wanted to be free, and we do see this come into play a little bit later on when unfortunately Hector and Renata are both killed, and they're killed in such a brutal way. So they've been terrorizing a few different towns for a while. Actually, they've been going on a ship for a while, and then they've docked and are moving through some towns. There was a really awful scene in here actually where Hector kills a priest and takes his clothes, and then he takes the sermon for that evening. And so when the people come to the church, they lock them in and massacre them essentially. However, one person does escape, and this leads to an angry mob being hidden in the next church that they plan to go to. And when they arrive, Sabine luckily glances backwards and she sees a little boy at the window, and he kind of signals to her that something's going on, and so she hangs back, which, as I said, is lucky for her, because when Hector and Renata go in, they are ambushed and they are captured. They are shackled, put into wooden coffins and burnt, and honestly I can't think of anything worse. That just sounds absolutely horrible. So that is pretty much where we're up to at the minute. Sabine's story arc for now has been put on pause, and we're back with Alice. Now Alice is a Scottish girl who has just gone to university, and on one of her first nights there she meets another girl called Lottie. They spend the night together after a party. Alice is very drunk, and we can tell from the get-go that Lottie is a little bit different. And then Alice wakes up the next day covered in bruises. She finds some blood on her sheets. She's very confused by this, and we the reader know that she has now been turned into a vampire. Now, because we haven't seen a lot of Alice yet, I don't actually know where this is going, but as of now she's really struggling to come to terms with the fact that she's been turned. She's testing out different things to do with vampiric lore, and she finds out that sunlight doesn't burn you, but it does make you feel sick, and that silver as well is fine. She doesn't have any reaction to that. It does seem as though as well that they can see their reflections, which is very interesting. But other than that, I'm not too sure how the vampiric lore works in here, so I'll be excited to read more about that. But yeah, Alice has been turned. She is not coping with it too well at the minute, but she hasn't freaked out like Sabine did at the beginning of the book. I will say though, there is a scene here after Alice has turned. She's gone outside to try and get herself some fresh air, but she is so ill that she can't stand, and someone who she knows calls over to her and asks her if she needs help, and he starts to help her. However, Alice soon realizes that he's not trying to help her. He is trying to kiss her and touch her, and it's not explicitly stated, but I do feel like Alice has killed him, but I'm not sure about that just yet. I feel like that's what happened, because she just had this rage come over her, and then the next time we see her she's back in her dorm room. So I'm not too sure, but I do feel like that is what's happened, and it'll be interesting to see how she copes with this, because again, she's feeling so ill right now. Nothing is satisfying her. She feels so ill whenever she tries to eat or drink anything. Of course, we know that's because she needs blood, but I can only imagine what waking up as a vampire could feel like, because yeah, that's just absolutely crazy. So that is where I'm up to now. Like I said, we have focused a lot on Sabine at the beginning of this book. Sorry for camera move then, Kiwi just hit hit it with the tail as she jumped up. And we haven't seen a lot of the other characters yet. I feel like it's because obviously Sabine's been alive longer. We do need her background information before we get to present day. I'm guessing their stories intertwine at some point, but honestly, I'm not too sure. I feel like this has been a very rambly update though, I do apologise, but I'm actually really excited to continue on with this. I'm hoping I can get about halfway through today. It should be easy for me because I am really enjoying it. I want to sit down and read it. Saying that though, I am trying to edit my Walt Disney World vlogs at the minute, and I do have Gavin's Once Upon a Time watch along tonight. I keep forgetting what day it is, guys. Honestly, the summer holidays just completely mess with me in terms of what day it is and times and things like that. I'm normally so good at knowing what day of the week it is because obviously I'm a teacher, but during the holidays it just goes. So it is Sunday. I would like to join that if I can. I'm very behind at the minute because I've been away as well. So we'll see how tonight goes. But yeah, the plan for now at least is to sit down and read some more of this. Like I said, I actually don't have any idea where this is gonna go. I'm along for the ride. I'm here for it. I'm invested in our characters. But in terms of plot, I have no idea what's gonna happen. So I am really interested to see. So I may update you later on tonight. I'm not too sure. For now though, like I said, I'm gonna sit down here. This is basically where I've been ever since coming home because I've either been editing or reading or watching telly. I have of course been taking Kiwi for walks and things like that. I went up a mountain the other day with her, which was lovely, but definitely a crazy idea after just coming back from holiday. But yeah, this is basically where I've been living over the past few days, and I'm just gonna sit down here now and read some more of this, and I will chat to you guys possibly later on tonight once I have some more thoughts on what is going on.
There is a life I lead in this city, hurrying to cut my teeth. I can take what I need to get by. It doesn't make it easy. The other piece of my heart moves slow, somewhere in the great unknown. When I return from the afterglow, will you carry me like I am whole again? Wait, hold on, put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone. Wait, hold on, put me together, take me back where I belong. I want it all. I had a feeling, but the feeling is all gone.
Now the next morning. I did have a really nice time last night. I did actually end up joining Gavin's live show for the Once Upon a Time watch along, but I only watched one episode before sitting down and carry on with reading. So I'm very happy to say that I have actually made it up to page 292, which I'd say is just over halfway, and I'm happy to say that I'm still very much enjoying this one. So where I left off with you last time, things were pretty crazy in this book. We had Sabine, who had just seen two of her friends murdered, and we also have Alice, who has just woken up and found out that she is now a vampire. Now we are still focusing quite a bit on Sabine, mainly because she is the one that's been alive the longest, and of course we do need to follow along with the events of her life in order to hopefully see her towards present day in the latter half of this book. But yeah, we're following Sabine once again, and she's actually by herself for quite a bit of time. I believe it's 10 years, and she has decided that she doesn't want to make any friends, she doesn't want to meet anyone else, she enjoys being alone, and she wants it to stay that way because she's been with Hector and Renata for so long that now she kind of wants to focus on herself. However, she has somehow made it to Venice. She's having a good time there. She is basically on a bit of a killing spree, and that does come to an abrupt stop, however, when she meets Matteo. Now, Matteo is a very old vampire. It's not explicitly stated how old he is, but you can tell just from the way he is that he's been alive for centuries. And he actually owns Venice. Now, I actually find this really fascinating, but he has essentially gone around Venice and claimed every single spot as his, and so when an intruder like Sabine comes in and is threatening him and what he's worked for, he can tell her to go away. She is not welcome there, and of course with the vampiric nature, she has to obey. And so Matteo strikes up a deal with Sabine and he invites her to basically live with him and his partner, but she does need to follow a set of rules, and the biggest one is that she can't just go out and kill anyone that she wants to. Now, Sabine is very affronted by this. We know that she is a confident character and she doesn't like being told what to do. However, she is so intrigued by Matteo and the fact that he can command her to leave if he wanted to, that she does decide to follow him. Now, Matteo really does want Sabine to be able to control her hunger and not let it control her. And so they decide to play a game, and that is that Sabine can choose one person who she would like to kill, essentially. And she has 10 days in which to get to know them, stalk them, basically find out what she wants to about her prey before then ending their life, which honestly is a bit sinister, I'm not gonna lie. And as I said, she doesn't really want to do this, but Matteo has said that if she can do this, he will tell her how he's managed to lay claim to a city and call this city his home, and so she decides to take him up on the offer. Matteo introduces Sabine into this society. I think he says that she is his niece, so as not to raise any suspicion, and of course she chooses a mark and the game begins. Now, it's actually crazy, but Sabine does manage to do this, and she finds that the hunt makes the kill more pleasurable because she does get more out of it, and so she realizes that Matteo might actually be onto something. She has a bit more of a high than she does when she just kills a random person on the street, and so she decides that this is what she's going to do for as long as she lives under Matteo's roof. What's interesting actually is that Sabine does choose one person who kind of becomes a really close friend to her. You see Sabine start to open up, you see her start to enjoy being in this person's company and just feeling, as I said, that she has a friend again, someone that she can talk to and experience life with. However, that doesn't stop the brutality of Sabine and her true nature, I suppose now, because when it comes down to it, Sabine does kill this woman, and yeah, I thought that was really sad, but again, it's like a turning point in Sabine's character where you can see that the darkness is taking her in a sense, and that even though she was close to this person and had formed a bond with them, that won't stop her from killing them just to satisfy her needs. Another element to this book that I find fascinating though is that Matteo actually has a human lover. And I say lover, but he is more of a life partner or a boyfriend, if you will. He is called Alejandro. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it is so crazy to see the contrast between Alejandro and Matteo and Sabine, because Alejandro doesn't want to be turned. He knows that Matteo is a vampire. However, he has said countless times that he does not want to become a vampire because he wants to live life to its fullest, and he knows that nobody should live forever. He knows that this is the time that he has, he wants to make the most of it, and when the ending of his life comes, then he will gladly go into the next life. And it's crazy to me because Matteo obviously accepts this, however he doesn't want to, and it seems as though Sabine and Matteo don't quite understand why Alejandro feels this way. They're obviously just thinking that, you know, it's a bit stupid, he might as well be turned and then he can live for a very long time with Matteo. But we've seen how bleak in a way life as a vampire is, because you can't drink anything, eat anything, you are limited in terms of the fact that you can't really go out in the sun, because the sunnier it is, the more ill you will feel. You of course have this constant hunger that can never be satiated for blood, and after a few years living somewhere you would have to move on because people would get suspicious of the fact that you don't grow old. And so we obviously can see why Alejandro doesn't want to be turned, but it is very difficult for our characters to accept that and understand that as well. Very sadly though, we do see Alejandro's life come to an end. So this section of the book actually does span across years. We see his health start to decline, and it's actually really sad to see that as well, especially through the eyes of people who are immortal. He ends up becoming very frail, he wants to sleep all the time, he doesn't always remember things. And yeah, it is very, very sad. And even up until the last point, Sabina's like, why don't you just let Matteo turn you? And he is adamant that he doesn't want that. And up until his dying breath, he is just happy with the life that he lived and the people that he was able to spend it with as well, which is just so heartwarming. We do see how devastated Matteo is though. As you can imagine, he spent his whole life with this person. He is not growing any older, but the love of his life is. And unfortunately, yeah, we see how this does take a massive toll on him. He falls into a very deep depression. He actually finds a young man to kind of take Alejandro's place, and he treats him as though he is his new boyfriend. However, he does turn this person, and it is such a mistake because this person is just crazy. He is out killing people every single night, and in the end Matteo does actually have to then kill him, which I can just imagine to be even more horrible, and you can see that he's spiraling. Sabine has grown to care for Matteo over these past few years, and she does kind of step in and tells him to get his act together in a way. She doesn't downplay the fact that Alejandro was such an important part of his life, but she's like, you can't keep doing this to yourself, and that at some point you have to move on. And that is what he decides to do. He does decide to leave Venice and head on over to America, I believe it was, but I may be wrong. I know he goes on a ship. Yeah, I've just double checked and I was remembering correctly. He has passage on a ship, he tells her, bound for the Americas. And he does ask Sabine to go with him, however she does decline, mainly because of Matteo's grief, and she says here it's Alejandro, or at least the absence of him, and the knowledge that he will follow Matteo wherever he goes, from now until the end, like a shadow, a ghost, and Sabine has no desire to be haunted. When Matteo boards his ship the following night, she knows she will never see him again. Watching it sail, she feels a shallow swell of grief, a ripple, but then it's gone. He's gone, and something shifts inside her, crumbles, falls, taking the wave of sadness with it. Where others rot without, we rot within. Sabine suspects that it's starting, that some small piece of her has died as Matteo said it would. She thought she would feel frightened, or at least disconcerted by the loss, but there is only a visceral relief, like shedding layers on a too hot day, the absence like a breeze against her bare skin. She exhales, feeling lighter than she has in years. So we see again how another chapter of Sabine's life is ending, but another one is starting as well. She is saying goodbye to Matteo and the life that she's lived with him and Alejandro in a way for years now, and she's setting off on her own again, but she is realising that more of her humanity is dying away and that soon she won't have any real emotions or feelings left. So that is where we're up to at this current point in time with Sabine, and I will say we've actually learnt quite a lot about Alice in this section as well. Now she of course is determined to find Lottie because she's the last person that was with her on the night that she was turned, and of course she believes that Lottie is the one who can answer all of her questions and let her know what on earth is going on. And so she does spend days poring over social media accounts to try and find Lottie, and in the end she does decide to just go out herself to try and find her. Now obviously she is around there somewhere because she met her on the first night that she was at university, but of course this isn't easy. She's in a city in a country that she doesn't really know all that well, and she wants to find a person who doesn't want to be found. As well as this, the sunlight does make her feel ill, and so just being out in the daytime is a struggle. After a while though, she does find that a man is staring at her and he offers her a lift to wherever she needs to go, and Alice of course accepts because it's easier than trying to make her way through the city in the sunlight by herself. But she can tell that as this man is driving, he is not the best type of man, let's say. His attention drifts towards her constantly, and then when they stop, he, I guess, demands something of Alice in return for this lift. He tries to grab onto her legs, he tries to make sexual advances, and of course Alice is uncomfortable, she doesn't want this at all, and she is very, very hungry, remember, and so she does end up killing this man and drinking his blood. After this, she makes her way to a vampiric nightclub, I guess, where there are predators and prey. Now, Alice is given a wristband that makes her a predator. A young girl comes up to her and is essentially like, oh, bite me, and Alice does because the girl is adamant. However, what she didn't realise is that this bar was essentially a mimic. It wasn't actually a place for vampires, and so she almost kills this girl and is thrown out. Now, the man who who threw her out is aware of vampires, or at least it seems as though he is. And he said that someone told him that if a vampire were to come into this club looking for food or other vampires, that he should tell them to follow the music. Now you'd think that this would be pretty difficult, but apparently not. Alice does kind of calm her mind, and when she does this she can hear music playing. Obviously her senses are heightened now, and I'm not sure if this is some sort of magical thing that's happening, but she decides to go with her gut, trust her instinct and follow the music, and this then leads her to a coffee shop. By this point she is of course very disheartened. She is thinking about giving up because she just doesn't have a clue where Lottie could be. However, a man called Ezra walks up to her. He can tell somehow that she is a vampire, and he introduces himself and tells her that he is also a vampire. Alice then learns that the coffee shop is actually a front and that it is a safe haven for people with paranormal or supernatural abilities. Alice then shows Ezra a picture of Lottie. I think that she actually found this on a social media post, but it wasn't a great picture of her. It was one from the party that Alice and Lottie were both at, and so she does show this to Ezra and she claims that Lottie is the one who turned her. However, Ezra is actually very shocked by this. It's apparent that he does know Lottie, but he's adamant that she would never do this, and so he has agreed to help Alice find Lottie, and he actually asks a mystic or a psychic, I suppose, to help them in tracking Lottie down. Now they have managed to do this. She has been tracked to a hotel and both of them are about to set out and see what Lottie has to say for herself. So that is where I'm currently up to. I'm aware that I've been talking for way too long. I always feel like I should be more concise in these clips, but I end up rambling on for way too long, so apologies for that. But this book is so easy to fly through. I am very chuffed that I managed to read as much as I did yesterday. I will say I'm not sure how much I'm going to get read today because I'm actually going out with my mum and my nieces. I'm just going to take it easy today and go with the flow essentially, but when I do get home I will of course try and read some more of this book, and I will share some more of my thoughts on it with you as well, because I am quite close to finishing now. As I said, I'm over halfway and I feel like this book is only going to get faster paced the closer to the ending that we get, so hopefully that is the case. But for now I am going to take a little break and I'll chat to you afterwards when I will have time to sit down and read some more. Today's the day, guys. I am planning on sitting down and finishing Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I feel like I could have finished this a lot sooner, but honestly I've really been enjoying taking my time with this one, and even though it is pretty easy to just pick up and fly through, I've really enjoyed getting to spend time with our characters, really get to know them and see what drives them as well. And now I feel like everything's going to come to a head and I am not sure if I'm ready for it just yet. I honestly have no idea how it's all going to wrap up, so that is one thing that I'm interested to find out. But as I said, I do think I'm just going to sit down and fly through this one this afternoon. I am over halfway, as I said, so that definitely gives me hope. I don't really have any plans for the rest of the day, so I do think I'm just going to sit down on the sofa and power through. And I will say Kiwi is behind me. I don't know if you can see her there. She always does this. As soon as I sit down, she tries to squeeze her way past me and claim the seat. So who knows if I'll be in the same spot later on. But yeah, Kiwi is here. She's gonna love the fact that I'm sat down now and not moving. And as I said, I can't wait to see what happens. So let's dive in. I know it doesn't look like I've moved. The tripod has been set up so that I don't have to move. I can just press record and film whenever I have some updates. But oh my goodness, does it all make sense now? Yes, it does. This is the part where our stories start to intertwine, and I'm just in awe of V. Schwab's writing abilities because this has kept me hooked from the get-go. But in the back of my head, I've always been like, how does this wrap up? And now I can kind of see how this wraps up. So Alice has found Lottie. I think I mentioned in the previous update that Ezra was helping her, and the three of them have had a kind of chat. It didn't go well to start off with, as you can imagine. Alice was definitely a bit angry and was lashing out, but Lottie is now with her. She has seemed to calm down a tiny bit, and Lottie has told her everything, basically. This is where her perspective comes in, and even though I would have liked to have seen this sooner, I feel like it's done so well and that it couldn't really have been any sooner in this book because it wouldn't have made sense and it wouldn't have been this impactful. But Lottie, aka Charlotte, met Sabine back in the day. Now I do have the date. It is 1827. So again, just to let you know, Lottie is of course a vampire. But when we meet Charlotte in 1827, she is actually human. She is such a fantastic, free-spirited character, and it's lovely to see her grow up with such a loving family as well. They're all pretty carefree and don't conform to society's expectations in a way, or at least to some extent. We do see how that turns later on. But yeah, Charlotte is basically allowed free reign of their estate, and they do have a lovely estate. She does have a best friend called Jocelyn, who she spends a lot of her time with, and in the first chapter of Charlotte's perspective, we see that her feelings for Jocelyn are quite deep. We see the two girls in sort of a scuffle because Charlotte has been writing in her diary, obviously about Jocelyn, and Jocelyn steals this diary intending to read it. And so Charlotte chases her, they try and grab it off each other, and they end up in a pile on the floor. This then leads to them kissing quite passionately, and unfortunately Charlotte's brother does see them and he gives them a kind of stern talking to, because of course in this time that was definitely frowned upon. And we see the two girls realise the enormity of what they've done in a way, and Charlotte goes back to her home that night and rips out all the pages that are to do with Jocelyn, and she just hopes that this doesn't ruin anything between them. However, of course it unfortunately does. Charlotte is actually sent away to live with her aunt in London, and I guess her aunt is kind of training her up to become a lady of society in order to find her a husband. Now, of course, she doesn't want a husband at all. She hates all the rules, she hates the fact that now she does have to conform to society, and we do see this take its toll on her. However, unfortunately, she gets some bad news, and that is the fact that her brother is going to marry Jocelyn, which, plot twist if there ever was one. She is feeling extremely lonely, isolated, and just out of her depth in a way in this unfamiliar place until she meets Sabine at one of these societal gatherings. Now, Sabine immediately picks her out, and I believe that she picked her out as a mark, which means that she was planning on killing her. However, they spend a lot of time together, they both seem to enjoy each other's company. There is some sort of attraction there as well. At least on Charlotte's part, we do see her become kind of infatuated with Sabine, and she does confide in her that she doesn't want this life. She doesn't want to become a wife. She doesn't want to have children with any of the men there, or possibly ever. And we see, of course, Sabine understands this because that is exactly what she was like when she was forced to marry herself. Over the next few weeks, we see them grow closer, and it does reach a turning point when a suitor comes to the auntie's house and asks Charlotte to marry him. She has an absolute meltdown. She does not know how to deal with this or what is going on or why he's even asked her, and she does the only thing that makes sense to her, which is to run to Sabine. Now, Sabine, of course, listens to her, talks to her, and I guess gives her an ultimatum. She says that she can help her, but of course the cost is going to be quite high. Now, Lottie doesn't quite understand how high, however, she is aware that something is different about Sabine, and she does have an inkling that it's not all as it seems. And Sabine does come right into her face. She kind of shows her that she is a vampire, and Lottie does not recoil. She takes Sabine as she is. They have a night together, and Sabine does turn her. And interestingly enough, Sabine actually turns around to her and says that if she had recoiled or if she had tried to run away, then Sabine would have killed her there and then without hesitation. So yeah, Charlotte is very lucky that she stood her ground and that she actually was okay with the fact that Sabine was a vampire, because it ultimately saved her life. Now, Sabine does turn her, and the next day Charlotte wakes up and she can't find Sabine. However, a few hours later, Sabine comes in with the man that proposed to Charlotte, and she's freaking out. She's like, how can you do this to me, especially after what we've just gone through together? You know that I don't want to marry this man. However, Sabine has brought him there so that Charlotte can kill him. And unfortunately, that is what happens. It's a very messy situation where Charlotte doesn't want to do it, and then Sabine has to kind of step in. And it is really, really sad for the man involved, unfortunately, because, you know, he just fell for a girl and now he is dead. And I will say that was definitely a heavy scene to read, because you can see the conflict in Charlotte, and also how Sabine kind of manipulates her a little bit as well. Now, I will say, of course, that is the nature of things for them now. She does have to consume blood, but I think the suddenness of it and the fact that this was a man that she's actually gotten on with throughout the past few weeks and seems to know pretty well, it just kind of threw her off, and it made her not want to kill him, of course. Now, throughout the rest of the section that I've read so far, we see Sabine and Charlotte kind of spend their life together. They go from place to place, they don't really settle, but as long as they have each other, they are fine. I actually have a quote here that I really like. It says, "It's not only Sabine's beauty or her charm, it's the fact that when she is there, the rest of the world seems to fade. What dazzled suddenly goes dim when compared to the weight of her presence, the force of her attention." So yeah, as I said, they essentially elope and live their lives together, and they seem to be very happy. However, that is until Charlotte starts to notice Sabine lose more and more of herself. She's becoming paranoid, she's becoming agitated, she is definitely not the same person that she fell in love with, I guess, at the beginning of their relationship, and we do see it start to sour throughout the years. We then meet two characters who are quite important to what happens next, called Antonia and Jack, and this is actually a chance meeting because Charlotte and Sabine are celebrating 100 years together, which is honestly crazy, and when they're out hunting one night, they stumble upon Antonia and Jack. Now, of course, like calls to like, they know that they're vampires, and they actually go back to the pair's club and spend some time with them there. However, Charlotte does turn to Sabine to ask if she can go with the couple because Sabine has kept them pretty isolated so far. Charlotte hasn't really met anyone that is like them, and so of course, seeing another couple, she is extremely interested, and so Sabine just says to her, well, it's your choice, what do you want to do? And Charlotte says she wants to go. This, however, was a test. Sabine did not want to go, she did not want Charlotte to go, and she wanted to see what she would do. However, when they get back, she is so angry that she completely lashes out. She tells her that, you know, she failed the test. Why doesn't she want to just be with Sabine? Why isn't she happy with what they have? And Sabine just doesn't understand how isolated Charlotte feels. She, of course, has lived hundreds of years and she's met so many of her kind, but Charlotte hasn't. And now that she's met a couple that she actually really likes, Sabine is not having a good time with that. What's interesting as well is that after this fight, Sabine actually makes Charlotte promise that she will never hurt her, and Charlotte thinks this is really weird, but she does promise. And again, because she is a little bit naive, she doesn't realise that Sabine has just compelled her and tricked her into making a promise that she can't break. And so when Charlotte finally does snap and she's had enough of this abuse, she decides that she is going to take Sabine's life. And so when Sabine's sleeping, she walks up to her, she has a wooden stake in her hand, and she tries to drive it through Sabine's chest. However, some unseen force holds her back, and that is when she realises the gravity of the promise that she made and the fact that she actually can't kill Sabine. Sabine, though, does wake up, she sees what Charlotte was about to do, and Charlotte just up and runs. She is panicking so much, she doesn't want to be there because obviously Sabine is very unpredictable, she's getting worse and worse in her behaviour, and so Charlotte does make it back to Jack and Antonia's and asks them for a safe haven, essentially. She stays there for a few nights with them, and they arrange for her to go to America, where she will hopefully be safe from Sabine. But of course, these storylines are intertwining, as I just said, and it turns out that Sabine has followed Lottie to America, and she is the one that has bitten and turned Alice. Oh my goodness, plot twist. So yeah, over the years, Lottie has had a few different relationships, and I am kind of jumping backwards and forwards in the timeline here, but every single partner that she's been with, Sabine has managed to ruin it. So she's either turned them into vampires or she has killed them herself. And so Lottie has just never been able to be free and to love someone fully because she knows that Sabine's always going to be there and she's just going to be haunting her. And so she has stopped herself forming relationships with people because she knows that she's putting them in danger. So what she's been doing, she's obviously been having one-night stands and things like that here and there, and she's left that person soon after and they will never see her again. That is what she was meant to do with Alice as well. However, now we realise that after Lottie had been with Alice, Sabine somehow came in and turned her, which is a really creepy thought, and I actually don't get this because vampires need to be invited in, right? So I don't know how Sabine could have gotten in. I don't know if her flatmate would have let her in, but then how did she get into Alice's room? Because surely you'd need her permission for that. So I'm a little bit unsure about that. However, I know Alice was very drunk. She wasn't even aware that Lottie had gone and that Sabine was there instead. So yeah, she was definitely not in the right state of mind, but that is definitely something that has niggled away at me because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So who knows, maybe we'll get some answers in the last few pages of this book. I honestly can't believe that I'm nearly done with it. Again, this has been such a rambly update and I'm so sorry, but I'm flying through this now. I feel like I don't really want to stop because I just want to find out what happens. So again, sorry for any jumping around in terms of the timeline or things that have happened. And yeah, as I said, I just want to sit down now and finish it to see what on earth is going on. So I am going to leave it here for now. Of course, for you, it's only going to be a couple of seconds and I'm probably going to look exactly the same and be in the exact same spot. But for me, it's going to take me a chunk of time to get through this, hopefully not too long. And I will chat to you once I finish the book. I finished it, guys. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about that ending. I actually think I'm going to try and turn you around slightly so that you can see Kiwi because she is sat behind me. There we go. She's too cute. I have to show you her. But yeah, she's essentially been in the same spot this whole time and she has loved it, I'm not going to lie. But saying that, I didn't love the ending to this book. I don't know why per se, I just feel disappointed by it and I felt like it was so rushed. So the climax is basically from page 505 to 533. So everything happens in those pages and yeah, like I said, I just feel like it was too fast. We don't really get to see the fallout of what happened or the consequence of that and I'm just a little bit confused as to why things happened the way they did and they don't necessarily make the most sense to me. So essentially, after Lottie tells Alice everything that happened in her life, Alice is actually really angry because she thought that Lottie for some reason had chosen her specifically, had turned her for a reason, and now she's just found out that Sabine's the one that turned her in order to get revenge on Lottie and that she's just been a pawn this whole time. And of course she's getting so angry because someone has just taken her life away from her for no reason other than pure spite, and her life has just been completely turned upside down now for no real reason. And I have to say that is very sad and I would be feeling the exact same way. But Lottie then tells her that she can actually get revenge on Sabine because if a vampire kills their maker in the first few weeks of being turned, then they go back to being human. Now I read this and I was like, really? That's a barefaced lie. So I knew that something wasn't quite right, but Lottie essentially tells her that, yeah, if she kills Sabine, then she will become human again. So they form a plan, and that is to be out together in public so that Sabine, who is obviously following them and stalking them, will find them and Alice can get close enough to kill her. They end up going to a nightclub. Alice does drink blood from someone in the bathroom, however Sabine jumps in and kills the girl. And from that point on, Alice does seem to black out. When she comes to, she is in the elevator that is heading up to Sabine's apartment. And there, I guess she just tries to get to know her a little bit more. They are spending time together. They are asking each other questions, trying to gauge what the other is after. And in the midst of all this, Sabine offers Alice a drink. Alice offers to get them both a drink instead. She walks towards a jar of blood, I guess, and starts to decant it. And she decides to put some graveyard dirt in Sabine's cup. Now, I don't actually think I've mentioned this before, but graveyard dirt actually can make a vampire very sick and even kill them. And so Alice has some of this, of course, to try and kill Sabine. The thing is, though, is that Sabine never actually drinks blood that isn't straight from the source, and so she is no way going to be drinking this decanted blood. This, of course, puts a spanner in the works for Alice because she was banking on the fact that Sabine would drink it. it, and that of course hasn't happened. However, she then goes to the bathroom. She notices that there is a piece of slate that is cracked, and she knows that she can use this to kill Sabine instead, and so she goes back, speaks with her for a little bit. Sabine tries to kiss her and she pulls away, and she says, actually, can I please have a shower first? I've had a rough couple of days, I'm not feeling the best. Sabine says yes, and then Alice goes into the bathroom. She takes a piece of slate off the wall and heads on into the shower, and what would you know, Sabine follows her pretty much instantly. She gets undressed, gets into the shower with Alice, and Alice stabs her through the heart. This, of course, does kill Sabine, and I just feel like that was such an anticlimactic ending. There is more to it, which I'll go into in a second, but I don't know. Sabine has been this really intimidating, scary presence throughout a lot of this book. She is so street smart. Her main goal is self-preservation, and I don't know how a young girl can thwart all of that, and the fact as well that when you're made, you don't have control over your thoughts, and when you think something, it's very loud, and obviously vampires who are older can control it a bit better, but they can also hear it as well, and so I feel like Sabine should just know that Alice is planning to kill her. I don't know. She's come from a situation where Alice knows that Sabine has turned her. She knows that Lottie's also been involved in this whole time. Why now would they be friends, and why now would she feel okay with being intimate with Sabine? It just doesn't make sense to me. I have thought about it quite a bit since finishing it, and I'm gonna have to think on it a bit more as well, but it just doesn't make sense. I feel like Sabine would know that something was up. I feel like there should have been more of a fight, because yeah, like I said, it's so anticlimactic, and it's pretty much unbelievable because Sabine is almost indestructible, and like I said, she knows every trick in the book. Her main goal, except for of course hunting Lottie and making her life miserable, but her main goal throughout these whole years have been to keep herself alive and to preserve herself as best as she can so that she can continue living the life that she does. So it just does not make sense to me that she would take Alice back to her flat, let her go into the bathroom by herself, not realise that a piece of slate from the wall was missing, get in the shower with her, and just be stabbed and gone like that. I don't know, it's just a bit strange to me. But we don't stop there, guys. Then Lottie kind of appears out of nowhere. She comes into Sabine's apartment and Alice gives her some decanted blood. Now, straight away I was thinking, oh my goodness, don't you dare, because Lottie, despite her flaws, despite the fact that she brought Sabine to Alice, she's actually been a really nice person. She's been a lovely character. She hasn't wanted to turn anyone into vampires. All she's wanted to do is get free from Sabine. But Alice decides that that's not good enough and that she also needs to suffer, and so she gives Lottie the glass of blood that has the graveyard dirt in it, and Lottie drinks it, and it's actually really horrible because it sounds pretty much like torture, and I'll try and find where it says what happens. It says, Lottie begins to gasp and choke, her face taking on that awful grey tinge that climbed up Alice's own arms back in the cemetery, that pallor like a fresh-made corpse, and then she's slipping off the sofa. She's on her hands and knees, clawing at her throat, mouth opening and closing as she gasps out, "What?" and "Please" and "Help." And whilst Lottie has obviously fallen to the floor now, Alice pins her to the ground and stabs her through the heart as well. And so Lottie stiffens once beneath her, then gives way, crumbling to rot beneath Alice's weight. A girl-shaped pile of debris, slivers of bone, and dampened ash. And again, I just feel like that is really anticlimactic in a way. It's very unnecessary. I feel like it is a big plot twist. I didn't really see it coming, which, you know, kudos to V-Schwab for that. But I just don't get it. I feel like, yes, you've been wronged. Yes, Lottie did do a few things in the past with Sabine that aren't that great, but Alice herself has killed people already, you know, and I just don't know. I feel like the ending was very confusing to me. It was very sudden as well, and that's all we get. The book kind of finishes there, so we don't really get to see Alice afterwards. I feel like Ezra would have been in the picture kind of looking for Lottie as well. Is Ezra feeling like he wants to get back at Alice now? I'm not too sure. I just have a lot of questions, and I just don't feel like it was executed that well, especially considering how invested I've been in the story and in these women's lives. I feel like they were snuffed out way too quickly, and I just wanted a better resolution. That's all I'm going to say for now, because I feel like I need to sit with this one. I need to gather my thoughts properly. I might look at some reviews because I may be the only person in the world that was let down by the ending of this book. I'm not too sure. But straight after finishing it, this is how I feel. I'm confused. I'm a bit let down. I just wish that the ending was maybe a little bit longer and less rushed so that we could really take in what was happening and believe it as well. Because at this point in time, I'm just finding it hard to come to terms with how this book has ended. So there we have it, guys. I finished the book. I can't believe it. I feel like I've been reading it for quite a while, but as I said, I've really been enjoying my time reading this one. I'm currently in a very weird reading mood. I'm a bit slumpy. Nothing's really holding my attention. So the fact that this one has, the fact that I've been so invested in it has been really refreshing. I'm so glad that I have decided to pick this one up and that it is a book club book as well, because I can't wait to hear everyone else's thoughts on it. And like I said, even though the ending has let me down a little bit, the rest of the book was phenomenal. I loved it. I have been so invested. I think that Sabine is the most interesting character, but again, that's just because we've spent the most amount of time with her and we have seen her through so many different periods of her life and of history as well. Lottie's, I think, was my second favourite, again because we got to see more of her life, I believe, and Alice I just didn't love as much. I think her perspective was isolated in a way. We of course see how her life is just completely turned upside down because of what these two women have done, but you don't really appreciate that until the end of the book, and you don't see her perspective as much through this book as well. I will say, actually, I think I forgot to mention, but Alice does have a traumatic event that happened in her past. Her sister was unfortunately killed, or you know, she I guess kind of took her own life in a way, and this of course has really affected Alice, and it's what sent her away to America because she wanted to get away from everything that was going on, and she felt like the only way she could do that was to literally travel to the other side of the world because her family would be fine without her in a way, but she wouldn't be fine there. So yeah, unfortunately we do find that out about Alice, and that is something that isn't stated until later on. We see flashbacks, we see her talk about her sister quite a lot and reminisce about times with her sister, and then towards the end of the novel we find out why, and that is of course that her sister has died. She stepped in front of a car one night. The car obviously hit her and she couldn't be saved, which is very, very sad. So I will say that was definitely an interesting thing to learn about Alice, but aside from that, I feel like her perspective was the least interesting and she wasn't my favourite perspective to read from. But saying that, I can see how important all these characters are for the story and of course for the timelines to come together and work. But I definitely say that Sabine's was my favourite perspective, then Lottie, and then Alice. And all in all, I have had an amazing time reading this one. It's just a shame that the ending let it down a little bit for me. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I will probably come back and close off this video properly another day. As I said, I feel like I need to sit with my thoughts for this one for a while. I'm going to look at some reviews, I'm going to watch some reading vlogs and see what other people think, and maybe that will influence my overall thoughts and opinions. I'm not too sure, but that is the plan for now. So I will pop back in at some point in the near future to close out this vlog and give you guys my final thoughts. Please excuse the state of me, guys. I have been at my niece's 4th birthday party all throughout today and I'm definitely feeling it by this point, but I did want to pop back in to close out this vlog because, as you know, I have now finished Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, and after some thinking I am going to be giving this one 4 stars. Now honestly, the majority of this book gave me 5-star feels. Absolutely loved it. However, the ending, as you saw, just didn't quite work for me. I'm still a little bit unsatisfied by it and I am just gutted overall really because this was such a strong book. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, unfortunately the ending just let me down a little bit. So I could give it a 4.5, however I am giving it a 4 on Goodreads because you can't give out half stars on Goodreads. But this is definitely a new favourite. I loved how atmospheric it was. I loved the historical fiction elements. I loved the different timelines and perspectives. And the vampiric element was very cool as well. If this is on your TBR, I would definitely recommend you give it a read. It is such an easy one to fly through. through as well. Even though I did take my time with it because I wanted to take that time, I could have flown through it in a couple of days, but I wanted to savor it, you know, and I think that this is definitely a good book to read during the spooky season. So as I said, if it is on your radar or if you don't own it and it's on your TBR, then I would definitely recommend reading it in the next few weeks in the run up to Halloween, because you won't regret it. I'm actually really glad that I did enjoy this one, because there have been a few V.E. Schwab books recently that I haven't loved, but diving into another story from her was just absolutely fantastic. And I actually do want to reread This Savage Song by her as well, which was one of her earlier releases, I believe, and its sequel, which is Our Dark Duet. I never read the sequel, and it's only a duology. It focuses on monsters and also has musical elements to it, which is honestly all I can remember off the top of my head. So I would love to read and finish that duology as well. And to be honest, having read this, it definitely has made me want to pick up more from V.E. Schwab, so that is the plan. I will probably try and get to those in October, and I really can't wait, because yeah, I just had such an amazing time with this one. It was such a well-written, atmospheric book that gave me everything that I wanted, except for the ending, of course. But honestly, I can look past that because of how amazing the rest of this story was. So I think I just wanted more from the ending. That's what it was. It did end abruptly. I get why it ended that way, but I just wanted more. So yeah, unfortunately, not quite the full 5 stars, but definitely a high 4. And as I said, I would highly recommend it to everyone. But with all that being said, we have now come to the end of this vlog. I feel like it has been a very long one, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, I've really loved documenting my experience reading this book, and I can't wait to read our next book club book, which is going to be The Raven Scholar. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I am very behind at the minute since getting back from Florida. I just haven't been able to get into a good reading routine, and so the month of the buddy read for The Raven Scholar has actually been and gone. But I am planning on reading it in the next few weeks so that I can film the vlog for you guys and get it up and start our latest buddy read, which I believe is Home is Where the Bodies Are, which is going to be a very fast read because it's a thriller. I might even read that one first and vlog my experience, and then dedicate some time to The Raven Scholar later on when maybe I'm off work for half term. I'm not too sure, but they are coming. I do apologise that I've been a bit all over the place recently. Starting back at work has been a very big adjustment for me. It's a very big change this year, and I am dealing with a lot of classes that are testing me in every way, shape or form, especially with the pupils' attitudes and things like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of behavioural issues that I'm dealing with at the minute, and it is definitely draining, so that by the time I'm getting home, I'm not really in the right headspace to read. And of course, I don't want to be filming myself either because of that. So we're in a bit of a vicious cycle at the minute, but I am hoping to move past that. I'm hoping that the next few weeks get a little bit better at least, so that I can get back into the swing of things, enjoy reading again, and create some content based on that reading experience as well. If you would like to join the book club, I will have the link to my Fable page listed down below. It's a bunch of fun. I would highly recommend joining on the app, because we can share our spoiler-filled thoughts on different chapters throughout the book in there as well. And I just think it enhances the overall reading experience, being able to see what other people are thinking of it, and also being able to put your comments there as well. I just think it's a bunch of fun. So I would love to have you join us on there. Thank you to everyone who has joined so far. I can't believe how many of you are there. And I'm so excited to finally be caught up, as I said, and read the next 2 books that you guys have chosen. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and leave me a rose emoji down in the comments. There are roses all over this cover. We also have some thorns on there, so I feel like a rose is pretty symbolic of this book. We do also have roses on the original cover, which I will try and show you there, but it is a little bit reflective. And of course, I'm going to read you this poem once again because it's such a beautiful one. It says, "Bury my bones in the midnight soil, plant them shallow and water them deep, and in my place will grow a feral rose, soft red petals hiding sharp white teeth." I know I say it all the time, but seeing you guys comment the emoji of the video truly does mean the world to me. It blows me away that you guys watch these all the way through. So if you are still here but don't have anything in particular that you would like to say, please go ahead and comment that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video, and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it for me today, guys. Thank you once again for watching, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!